Hi friends, welcome to my Bamu's Biogenius channel. Today we will discuss about species concept. This species concept is important for UG and PG students. So stay with me for the species concept. Now, if we see the definition of a species is nothing but a Latin word, and the meaning of Latin word is a kind or appearance or form. So species is a group of individuals showing similar type of characteristic features, and that's why that particular group of individuals is called as a species. See, in the previous slide we have discussed about the definition of a species. Now, what is a concept? See, concept is an idea according to Jody Hay. It is an idea to explain something which is neither broad nor too specific. And if we see the hierarchy, then it is just below the theory and above the definition. So it is an idea to explain something in short. But see here, what happens when we talk about a species? Species has three meanings. One first meaning of a species is a taxon, and in that taxon means what? It is the lowest unit of a classification. When we classify particular organisms, this is species is the lowest unit of a classification, where we use some fixed characters, and with by applying various taxonomic procedures we can identify a particular type of a species, and this species is applicable, or this taxon, or we can put any kind of a species into this particular taxon with the help of different types of, or with the help of a set of fixed characters. So this is the species. Then species as a category means what? Category is means a level in a linear hierarchy. We know that we have a phylum, we have a order, we have a suborder, then family, like that. The species is also a kind of a category. It is the lowest level in a linear hierarchy. Now, then another term that is known as the species concept. Now, this I have told you already that this is an idea. Now, see here, we are looking at a particular kind of a population. See, this is the population of birds. There are two types of blackbirds here, and these blackbirds are, we see that these are different from each other. Some are having a different type of characteristic features, and some are having a different types of characteristic features. Now we have to put them into different uh, or different species, or we can say we have to demarcate them from each other. Now, what kind of idea that should be used to group this population into two different species, species 1 and species 2? What kind of idea should we should use? That is known as a species concept. Now here, what we are doing, we are doing, or we are looking at them, and we are using morphology, and with the help of morphology we are demarcating them and putting them into this category of a species, species 1 and species 2, like this. Now remember that this idea, that is the idea of using this morphology to demarcate these two populations from each other. is useful in this context only, but there are certain populations which cannot be merely demarcated with the help of morphology only. So again, we have to use a different idea for that. That means at each time we will have to use a different idea. So there is a no uniformity in identifying or demarcating a particular group of animals from each other. No uniforming idea, or we can say the no um, single idea is sufficient to demarcate different populations from each other, and that's why the confusion is, and that's why the species problem has arisen. And we see that there are about 20 different species concept that has been proposed, but none of them is totally or universally applicable to demarcate between the two populations, or that is very good for or universal for to identify, to define a particular species. So this is the largest and the oldest problem of biology, and that's why it is called as a species problem. So different scientists have put forward their idea of defining a species, and thereby they tried to solve this problem, but this problem has not yet been solved. As we discussed earlier, also, John Ray was the man who first coined the term that is species, and according to him also he was in also confusion that he was not able to uh, define a particular criteria for determining species, and he just observed an observation. He gave the definition as the species are those groups of organisms that resemble their parents. So he emphasized on the resemblance with the parents. Then Linnaeus, he also used eyeball method. Eyeball method means just he, by looking at the particular kind of organism, he gave the definition of a species. And according to Carlos Linnaeus, the group of organisms having similar morphological characters is called as a species. So he emphasized on morphology, and on that basis only he classified the organisms. Then Cuvier in 1829, he gave the definition as the assemblage descended from one another or from common parents and of those who resemble each other. So he gave this definition about the species. Then in 1813, De Candolle tried to define species in his work Theorie Elementaire de la Botanique. He was a famous botanist and tried to give the definition of a species, in which he emphasized on resemblance among the individuals. And according to him, a species is a collection of all the individuals which resemble each other more than they resemble anything else, which can by natural fecundation produce fertile individuals and which reproduce themselves by generation in such a manner that we may, from analogy, suppose them all to have sprung from one single individual. So he gave emphasis on the resemblance as well as the fecundity of that particular individuals when they breed among themselves. So this is a definition that is given by De Candolle in 1813. Then Charles Darwin, in his 1859 book that is On the Origin of Species by Natural Selection, He called species as a set of individuals closely resembling each other. But at the same time, he said that species are not natural, but they are artificially used by people, or the term that is given artificially by the people for their convenience. And the species are not the true entities in nature. Then Thomson in 1937, he gave the definition as the group of individuals distinguished by an irreducible set of constant properties and connected by descent and genetic relationship. So now, by this time, the knowledge of genetics that was there, and because of that, they have different scientists, biologists. They have added uh, these elements or these genetic relationships into the definition of a species, and because of that, they have given this particular type of definition of a species. Now, Huxley in 1942, he also added one another thing into the definition of a species. According to him, a geographically definable group whose members actually interbreed or are potentially capable of interbreeding in nature, which normally in nature does not interbreed freely or with the full fertility with related groups and is distinguished from them by constant morphological differences. So, according to Huxley, now in this definition, Huxley introduced the idea of a geographically definable group, plus he also added that these particular groups should interbreed or they have a capability to interbreed, and then he also emphasized on the morphological uh, similarities and differences. Then Mayer in 1942 defined species as a groups of actually or potentially interbreeding natural populations which are reproductively isolated from other such groups. So this was the definition of a Mayer, and according to him, he gave emphasis on the interbreeding of the individuals among that particular group. So if the particular individuals or group of individuals they are not um, interbreeding with each other, they are reproductively isolated, then such a groups are or such groups should be considered as a different species. That was the idea uh, behind the definition of this mayors in 1942. But after 1957, he may reviewed work of earlier workers also and came to the conclusion that all these definitions given so far can be broadly categorized into three main concepts. And accordingly, he gave three concepts, that is, or he categorized, he classified the concepts into three groups. One is a typological or essentialist species concept, another is a nominalist or a nominalistic species concept, and biological species concept. So this was how that the idea of a species evolved. But we know that the Darwin was not in a favor, or Darwin was not having or not ready to define species. He wrote about the difficulty in defining species as a nor shall I here discuss the various definitions which have been given of the term species. No one definition has as yet satisfied all naturalists, yet every naturalist knows vaguely what he means when he speaks of a species. So this was um, written by Darwin in 1859. So from this, according to Jody Hay, he is a professor in biology at Temple University, and in 2014 he described a species problem as a species problem is like a sword embedded in the stone, and we know that it will not come out, but still we have to try to pull it out. So in 1991, Ernest Mayr and Ashlock categorized different species concept into four groups. These groups are essentialist species concept, nominalistic species concept, biological species concept, and evolutionary species concept. Now the question arises that why it is so important that we should define a species, or we should discover the species. Although even Darwin also said that the species is a kind of arbitrary unit, and that is developed for the sake of convenience of a biologist. But nowadays we know that the species are the real entities, and these are fundamental units of taxonomy, biodiversity, and also they are also useful, or we can say that in terms of evolution also, that species is a kind of a small evolutionary unit. So according to P.J. Taylor, the species are a currency of a biology, and it allows biologists of all fields to communicate with each other meaningfully, and that's why the species should be discovered and species should be defined. And he also says that this also satisfies the human urge to ask what kind of an animal or a plant is that. That means this is how that there is the importance of a species, and that's why we have to discover that particular kind of a species. Now we will discuss about morphological species concept. It is also called as a essentialist species concept. The proponents of this morphological species concept were of the opinion that the particular animal or a species or organism has a particular kind of structures, essential structures, by which we can identify that particular organism, and we can separate that organism from other kind of organism. So for example, here you can see here, this is a moth, and you can see these are the certain morphological features, essential characters that can define or that can identify that particular kind of a organism. So all these are nothing but the morphological characters: claviform spot or orbicular spot or reniform spot. All these are the morphological features of that particular organism, and on that basis we can identify that this particular organism is of this particular species. Now, uh, this particular kind of practice of identifying the particular kind or a form of a species with the help of morphological features, that is done first by the philosophers, Greek philosophers like Plato, then Aristotle. They used the term that is known as eidos. They are of the opinion that each and every organism is having a particular kind of essential features, essential characters, with the help of which we can identify that particular organism, and that essential characters are called as eidos. And these eidos can be used to identify the species, as well as these characters can also demarcate in between the species, or they can be used to demarcate two different species. So this is how that particular morphological characters are used. And nowadays also you will find that whenever we use or we go for a museum study, type specimens are placed there. Now these type specimens are what? These type specimens are nothing but the representative of that particular species, and by looking at the characters of that species and by comparing with the this particular type specimen, we can identify the different species. So for example, if we take a particular kind of organism with us to the museum curator, and you will ask them to identify this particular creature or organism, he will use that particular type specimen which is deposited in his museum. He will compare that type specimen with yours, and then he will identify that particular species on the basis of morphological characters. So this is the practice that is still we do in our museum. So this is what the morphological species concept is all about. Then in this morphological species concept, the this morphological species concept is also used by Linnaeus for his classification studies. He used the eyeball method to identify. What do you mean by eyeball method? Eyeball method means describe what you see. That is the eyeball method. So he used that, and with the help of this, and he just noted down the morphological characters for his classification study. And he was of the opinion that the the diversity is due to fixed number of types. So he was of the opinion that whatever the types are there, these are fixed, they will not change. According to this morphological species concept, the species remains, the number of species remains constant throughout the time, they will not change. And another we can say the um, postulate of this is that the morphological differences, or if a type specimen differs from the other type specimen, that means these are the two species are there. So morphological differences in the organism are a basis for defining a species. So these are the, we can say, the postulates of this morphological species concept. So now we will discuss about the merits of morphological species concept. First is it is a very traditional, because it has been used from long time, and very simple. Just we have to look at the organism and define its character, describe its character, and thereby we can identify that particular species. And again, the next is applicable for living and extinct group as well. So we know that other concepts are very difficult to apply for fossils, and this concept is by looking at morphological aspect of that particular specimen, we can describe that specimen, and we can identify that particular species. So this is very handy for human fossils also. Then another application is it is applicable for sexual and asexual groups also. When we compare with the other type of a species concept, this can be applicable to sexual as well as asexual groups of individuals, where the sex of the individual is not important, or the compatibility, sexual compatibility of the individuals is not required. So in such groups also, this morphological species concept can be applied. So all these are the merits of a morphological species concept. Now we will discuss about the criticism or demerits of the morphological species concept. The demerits are like the first one is the age difference. When there is a age difference, there is a tremendous difference is there in the morphology of the animal. Then even in certain cases, animal also differs during the season. Then we all know that a sexual dimorphism is also a kind of a morphological feature that differentiate between male and female. So where this morphological species concept is not applied. Then polymorphism. Some organisms have polymorphic individuals. So although they are of same species, but still they show the polymorphism. Then sibling species, although they look like a same, but they are um, different species. Then the this concept says about the idea of fixity of species. That is also wrong. So this is also a kind of a demerit, or we can say that. Then a drawback of this morphological species concept. Then the last one is inflation of number of species. So when we apply a morphological species concept, the number of species increases in that particular group. So these are all the criticisms or demerits of morphological species concept that we will discuss now. See, some organisms, they show different morphology according to their different age. For example, if we see a butterfly, this one is a caterpillar and this one is an adult butterfly. Both are of the same species, but they differ morphologically. Now, if we apply morphological species concept to this, we will put these two organisms into two different species. But in reality, this is not so. Both these forms are of the same species, and this difference is only due to the age. So here the morphological species concept fails. Then another example of age difference is this one, adult male Asian paradise flycatcher. You can see this in India also. This is a male and with this plumage. Now see the juvenile male Asian paradise flycatcher. This juvenile male Asian paradise flycatcher shows a different plumage than the adult one. So, if we apply a morphological species concept, you will put this particular organism into a different species and this one into a different species. But in reality, these two are of the same species. Even here also, in case of a paradise flycatcher, you can see here the sexual dimorphism is also seen. The female is with this color and a short tail, while male is with this color and a long tail. Then seasonal change. Now we have seen that the organisms differ during the season. So in one season they acquire one form and in another season they acquire another form. The famous example is evening brown. If we see evening brown during the dry season, you will find this type of evening brown. And if you will see the evening brown in a wet season, it will acquire this type of morphology. Now, here also, if we apply morphological species concept, you will put these two butterflies into two different species, but in reality, it is not so. These are only the seasonal forms. So here also the morphological species concept fails. Then this is the famous example of sexual dimorphism. Birds show sexual dimorphism. This one is a male mallard duck and this one is a female. Even Carlos Linnaeus is also failed, he got confused and he put these two into two different species. So you can see here sexual dimorphic individuals or the organisms which show sexual dimorphism, they differ in the morphological characters, and morphological species concept also fails here. Then we know that certain group of animals show polymorphism, for example ants and honeybees. Here the example is of apis mellifera, is a honeybee. You can see here queen bee is here and worker bee is here. There are morphological differences in these two, but still they belongs to a same species. Now, although these are of the same species, but they shows a morphological differences. Now, if we categorize or if we apply morphological species concept, we will put these two organisms into two different species. So, in polymorphic individuals also we cannot apply morphological species concept. So here also morphological species concept fails. Then the sibling species. Now see here, until now we have seen that the two different types of individuals or morphologically different individuals are there of the same species, but here you will find that although these two individuals are of a same morphological features or with the same, they are showing same morphological features, but they belongs to two different species. So such a type of species they are called as a sibling species. So they are morphologically similar but they cannot interbreed, so they are of the different kind or different species. So eastern meadowlark and western meadowlark, you can see here, by looking at morphological features, we will put them into a single species, but in reality, they belongs to two different species. They cannot interbreed, and that's why morphological species concept fails here also. Then another idea that is given by morphological species concept is that the number of species in the universe or on the planet, they remains fixed, they remain constant. But this is not so. As we study evolution, we see that because of the variations, the species tend to change over the time. But morphological species concept believes that the uh, the species are fixed, the number of species are fixed and they don't change, but this is not true. So this idea of a fixity of a species is also false, that is explained by morphological species concept. So that is why, or because of all these kind of we can say the demerits, we cannot say that morphological species concept is foolproof for identifying a species. See, the next demerit of the morphological species concept is the inflation of number of species. See, when organisms are identified with the help of this morphological species concept, the there is a inflation of or the number of species that increases, because see, we are taking into account the morphological differences, and if that morphological differences are more in that particular population, then the result is splitting of that particular taxa into different subspecies. So that's why the number of species increases, the biodiversity increases. The famous example of this is Gotta's pocket gopher. That this is a rat-sized animal, rodent, and lives in a burrows and under the soil. This mammal shows very minor variations among themselves, and because of that, they are divided into 35 species and about 200 subspecies. So you can imagine that that much amount of inflation can be seen in a single group of animals. So this is one of the main drawback of a morphological species concept. Now, this nominalistic species concept is proposed by Occam and his followers. And according to this concept, there is no such thing as a species. Uh, this concept is of the opinion that only individuals exist, and the similarly looking individuals, they are placed in one group, and that group is called as a species taxon. So species have been invented in order to refer many numbers of individuals collectively. So this was the idea of a nominalistic species concept. Now, to explain this nominalistic species concept, they give an example of a furniture. See, whenever we talk about a furniture, a particular this furniture is an imaginary group that is created by the humans, and this imaginary group includes, or this furniture includes, the different artifacts that are made up of wood and iron. So that may be a stool, that may be a chair, that may be a almirah, that may be a table. So all these includes the furniture. But when we talk about the furniture, or when we think about the furniture, no fixed image that comes in our mind. So similarly, the species is nothing but the same thing, that is an imaginary group, and that's why they believe that the nominalistic species concept believes that the species are like species is a kind of a imaginary group, and this concept was very popular in France during 18th century. According to Bessie, 1908, nature produces only individuals and nothing more than that. So, species is a merely a creation of a man. So, this was the idea of nominalistic species concept. Now, we will discuss about the demerits of a nominalistic species concept. See, according to the nominalistic species concept, the species is an arbitrary unit. But according to Mayer, species is not an arbitrary unit, it is a real entity. And he was of the opinion that in a given locality, even if we see a hybrid organism or a intermediate species, it is an exception, because the species are the product of evolution, and it is nothing, or it is, they are not the product of imagination. So this is the first demerit of nominalistic species concept. Now we will discuss the second demerit of a nominalistic species concept. This nominalistic species concept wrongly emphasizes the similarity, and it wrongly equates it with the relationship, because see, the similarity and relationship, these two are very different things. And when we create, according to Simpson, when we create a species, see, that species is nothing but a taxon. So when we create a species, we look at the origin of that particular individual, from where these particular individuals which are grouped together to form a species, we look at the origin of these individuals. So it is wrong notion that the species are created by putting the similarly looking individuals, because we don't emphasize this on similarity, we just emphasize this on the common origin, shared origin of that particular group of individuals, and that's why they are placed in a particular species. Now, to explain more about this, the mayor, he gave the example of a tree, and see here, these two brothers are extraordinarily similar, and so they are twins. This statement is wrong. See, only because of the similarity, they are similar, they are looking similar, and that's why they are twins. This is a wrong statement. The correct statement is that the two brothers are identical, extraordinarily similar. That is because they have a common origin. They originated from the one zygote, and that's why they are similar. So, this statement correctly emphasizes on the origin. It does not look at the similarity. So, similarity and the origin, these two are the different things. Now, we will discuss about the biological species concept. This was the most popular and accepted species concept among all biologists. It was first proposed by the Buffon in 1753, and in his definition of a species, he included the interbreeding of the species among the species, and uh, after that, even the famous entomologist E.B. Poulter in 1904, he also um, mentioned the necessity of including the intervening syngamy in the definition of a species. So uh, this was the starting of a biological species concept. In 1942, Mayer gave the famous concept that is known as a biological species concept, or it is also called as a modern species concept. Now, let us see what is in it. This is the definition of Mayer, and he proposed, or he defined the species as species are groups of actually or potentially interbreeding natural populations that are reproductively isolated from other such groups. This was the definition of Mayer, in which he emphasized on the interbreeding among the individuals of the same species. Plus, he also said that they should be reproductively isolated. That means they should not, or the members of the two species should not reproduce among themselves. So, this was the definition of the biological species concept. And then Dobzhansky, he was an evolutionary geneticist. He added a gene pool in the definition, and he defined a species as a species are the largest and most inclusive reproductive community of sexual and cross-fertilizing individuals that share a common gene pool. So this was a definition by Dobzhansky. This is the overall idea about the definition of a species concept, biological species concept. Now, see here, in 1970, again, the mayor improved this biological species concept, and he stated that these members of the same species should have these following properties. Now, these following properties are not found in inanimate objects. So, these are the properties of only the animals or living organisms. So, what are those properties? First one is a one reproductive community, then an ecological unit, and a genetic unit. That means the species is one reproductive community, it is one ecological unit, and it is also a genetic unit. Now, one by one, we will discuss about these properties. These properties are shown by only the living organisms. These properties are not shown by the non-living organisms or inanimate objects. And that's why the name of this, in the name of this particular species concept, the word that biological is added. Now, what is that? What are those properties? First one is the one reproductive community. So these members of the species, they form a kind of a reproductive community. They breed among themselves to produce the healthy individuals, and these individuals or whatever the members of that community, they will not interbreed with the other species. So they are reproductively isolated from the individuals of the other species. So this is the first property of that the species are a reproductive community. Then again, the second property is that it is an ecological unit. Now we know that each species is made for that particular type of niche, environmental niche. So we know that what is a niche. Environmental niche means what? That particular species is suited for that environment. It derives nutrition, it derives protection, it derives oxygen from that particular kind of a environment, and that environment is very suitable for that particular species. So that is the ecological niche of that particular organism. So according to this concept, the species is an ecological unit which interacts with the other species in its environment, and the members share the same ecological need. So this is the importance of the ecological unit. So species is nothing, or it is about the, or it is a ecological unit also. Then species is a genetic unit also. Now see here, the members of the same species, they will have, or they are interchanging, exchanging genes among themselves, because they are reproductive unit also. So when they are exchanging their genes with each other, that means what, they have a common gene pool. So the idea of a common gene pool is that all these species which are present in that particular, uh, all the individuals which are present in that particular species, that individuals will free to exchange their genes with each other. So they are interbreeding among themselves, and that's why they are exchanging their gene. So total genes that are present in that particular species, they are holding that particular gene pool. So that gene pool is special for that particular species. So that's why that gene pool, or a genetic unit, that species represents a genetic unit or a gene pool. So all these are the properties that are shown by the living organisms, and that's why this species concept is aptly called as a um, biological species concept. Now, to further prove the biological species concept, they gave an example of a mule, which is a product of hybridization in between the horse and the donkey. So, as we know that according to this concept, the species are actually or potentially interbreeding natural populations which cannot reproduce outside their population, and even if they reproduce outside their population, the hybrid individuals which is formed, that should be fertile. So if that individual is fertile, then and then only these two populations belong to the same species. If that individual is not fertile, that means these two populations are, or these are different species. So here, when we talk about the mule, mule is a hybrid of a donkey and horse, but this mule is infertile. So that proves that this particular donkey and horse, these two are two different species, or donkey population and horse population are different from each other, and that's why they are different species. So uh, this mule example was used to describe the biological species concept. Now, another key feature of this biological species concept is that reproductive isolation. Now, infertility among the two species, that suggests that these two species are reproductively isolated from each other. And this property of reproductive isolation is a biological property, because this will be shown only by the living organisms. It will not possible for inanimate object to show reproduction. So that's why the term biological is added. What happened in a morphological species concept, that the Linnaeus, while classifying the organisms, he even classified the stones and minerals in a classification, and these are the inanimate objects. So with the help of morphological species concept, this can be done, because morphological species concept only refers to the morphological characters of that particular organism, or whatever it may be. So even inanimate objects are also classified into organisms. So to avoid this, the mayor added this term biological to its concept. So that's why it is called as a biological species concept. Now, this criteria can be used only when two species are contemporary and living in the same area. See, When we talk about a reproductive isolation, that means we are tasting their reproductive ability of the population. So when these populations are living in the same area, then we can test that whether they are reproductively isolated or not. Or even if they are contemporary, that means living in that particular time, then and then only we can taste this reproductive isolation, otherwise not. So such a type of concept is called as a non-dimensional concept. So to avoid this, Mayer added the multi-dimensionality to the biological species concept. What is that? See, according to him, biological species concept is a non-dimensional as well as multi-dimensional. So what is a non-dimensional? That already I have told you that it means when two species share same time, contemporary, and the same space in a given area, then it is called as a sympatry. So in a same area, these two species are there, A and B, in the same time, at the same time. So that's why these two species are different. They are reproductively isolated. Then such a type of a species, they are called as a sympatry, or the phenomenon is called as a sympatry. Then multidimensional means what? When the two species cannot share space, that means they are separated by a geographical barrier or by a time, then it is called as a allopatry. So the species A and species B are allopatric to each other. So this is how the Mayer added the dimensionality to the biological species concept. Now there are demerits of biological species concept also. So these demerits are, for example, first one is a BSC is not applicable to asexually reproducing species such as prokaryotes, bacteria, amoeba, protist, fungi, some plants, and even animals. So that means this biological species concept, as it emphasizes on the interbreeding and reproductive isolation. So here, in case of this, all these are the asexually reproducing organism. So there is no question of interbreeding. So this biological species concept cannot applicable, or will not be applicable to asexually reproducing organisms. Then some organisms show uniparental reproduction. For example, this blind snake is there. Only females exist. No males are present in this particular organism. So, biological species concept is not applicable to such kind of uniparental organisms. Then, similarly, it is not applicable to fossil species because we cannot identify the interbreeding capacity of these animals, because they are fossils, and we cannot study their gene flow also. So, um, this BSc is not applicable to fossils. Now, another drawback of the biological species concept is that reproductive isolation is incomplete in some of the animals. For example, it is coival. It is a hybrid of coyote and wolf. Coyote and wolf have been separated from last 5,000 years, but still the separation is incomplete. The hybrids that are formed due to the combination of these two animals is called as a coy wolf, and they are fertile. So biological species concept cannot explain this incomplete reproductive isolation, as well as this hybridization. Such type of hybridization is also found in plants, insects, and higher animals. So this is one of the drawback of the biological species concept. Now another drawback of our biological species concept is that it is only applicable to the populations which are living in a same area, or it is applicable to the populations which are living uh, in a particular time period, or they are, if they are contemporary, then and then only we can use this biological species concept on that particular populations. But in this case, for example, in such a cases where the two populations are divided by a geographical barrier, there is no way to test the biological species concept. So we cannot test the interbreeding among the populations which are divided by the mountain range or a river or oceans. So this is known as a non-dimensionality of the biological species concept. And this is again the another we can say the demerit of the biological species concept. Now we will discuss about the significance of a biological species concept. Mayer was the first scientist who elevated a species concept from individual level to the population level. According to him, if there will be no species, what will happen? The individuals of the population, they will freely exchange their genetic material with any kind of a organism. Because of that, the resultant new generation will have a new type of a combination of a genes. Now this resultant generation will interact with the environment. It will extract or use that environment judiciously, and it will survive. Now after that, in next generation, what will happen? Again there will be a new combination of a genes, new combination of a genetic material will take place, and because of that, again this new individuals will form with a new genetic makeup. Again these will have to cope up with the environment. That means there will be a constant struggle between generation and the environment. Now to avoid this situation, Mayer suggests that how to prevent this. It can be prevented with the help of two methods. What is that? We will see. Now, according to Mayer, there are two methods to avoid this, to prevent this. First is they will have to maintain their genetic recombination by acquiring or by switching over to a method or a mode of reproduction that is known as a asexual method or a mode of reproduction. Now, what happens in a sexual mode of reproduction? In a sexual mode of reproduction, mixing of genes that takes place. What do you mean by sex? Sex means what? Mixing of a gene. So, in a sexual mode of reproduction, mixing of genes that takes place. So, to avoid this mixing of a genes, they will switch over to the asexual mode of reproduction. Now, because of that, they will maintain their superior genotype, which is very well suited for the surrounding environment. And as long as that environmental situation is there, that suitable environment is there, this genotype will survive, or that the organisms which are having this particular genotype will be adapted for that particular environment. The second method or second mode of to prevent this is that they will invent a species. Now, by inventing a particular kind of a genetic program, so that this particular type of genetic combination will be maintained, and there will be a reproduction only among the individuals of that same genetic makeup, these particular organisms will cope up with the environment. Now, this their genetic, if their genetic makeup will remain as it is, then they will be called as the species. So this is how that the struggle with the environment is mitigated by inventing a species. So this is all about the um, biological species concept. So this is about the three species concepts. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel Bamu's Biogenius for latest uploads, or like my videos, and if you have any queries, please comment. Thank you.